Okay, so if you've ever tried to learn a new language, you know that feeling, right? That hesitation, that fear of saying something wrong. But what if I told you that those mistakes, they're not just normal, they're actually a sign of incredible progress? Seriously, understanding this one thing can completely change how you learn, and it can make the whole process so much less stressful. All right, let's get into it.
Take a look at this. Why you are late. Sound familiar? Yeah, maybe you've said it yourself, or you've definitely heard another learner say it. It's a classic error. And for decades, we thought we knew exactly why people made mistakes like this. But it turns out the real reason is way more fascinating than you'd think.
And that really gets to the heart of what we're talking about today. Is a sentence like, why you are late, is that a failure, a simple mistake, or is it something much, much bigger, like a giant leap forward? The answer, you'll see, completely flips how we should look at the entire learning process.
All right, so to really get it, we've got to go back in time a little bit. Let's look at the old theory. For a long time, the go-to explanation for every single mistake was super simple. It was all your first language's fault.
This idea had a fancy name, the contrastive analysis hypothesis. And the logic, kind of makes sense on the surface. If your native language does something the same way as the language you're learning, hey, no problem, it'll be easy. But if they're different, well, your brain's going to get confused and you'll end up transferring the rules from your first language over. Simple, right? The problem was, it was too simple.
See, researchers started noticing something really weird. A lot of the errors people were making had absolutely nothing to do with their native language. In fact, and this is the crazy part, learners from all over the world were making the exact same kinds of mistakes. And even weirder, they looked a whole lot like the cute little errors toddlers make when they're first learning to talk. The old theory, it just couldn't explain that. And that little puzzle led to a huge breakthrough.
And that breakthrough gave us a completely new, and way more accurate, way to understand what's really going on inside a learner's head. It's not about your old language getting in the way. It's about your brain actively building something new.
And the key idea here is something called interlanguage. I want you to think of it like a bridge that a learner is building, plank by plank. This isn't just a random pile of mistakes. No way. It's its own living, breathing language system. It has rules, it's predictable, and it's the personal, unique bridge that gets you from your first language, your L1, over to your target language, your L2.
So what's this bridge made of? Well, that's what's so cool. It's a mix of things. Yeah, sure, some of the materials are borrowed from your native language, but a lot of it is based on your growing but still not quite complete understanding of the new language. And then there's this third, fascinating part. Some features are just these universal patterns that pop up in pretty much every single learner, no matter where they're from.
Now, there is one little danger zone we have to talk about. Sometimes, construction on this bridge just stops. This is a thing called fossilization, and it's when certain mistakes can become permanent. This usually happens when a learner stops getting good feedback, so their brain doesn't know it needs to keep updating the blueprints. That's why practice and good teaching are so important.
So, you might be thinking, okay, this interlanguage bridge theory sounds neat, but how do we know it's real? Well, it's because we can literally watch it being built. Researchers have found that learners pick up new grammar skills in these amazingly predictable, universal stages.
And this right here is one of the best examples. Learning how to ask a question. It doesn't matter if you're from Spain or South Korea or South Africa. Everybody goes through these stages in this order. You start super simple with single words, right? Dog. Then you move on to using a regular sentence, but just with a question in your voice. The boys throw the shoes. Then comes stage 3, fronting, where you learn to stick that question word at the beginning. It's just like climbing a ladder, one rung at a time. You can't skip a step.
Okay, so let's go all the way back to our original sentence. Why you are late. See where that fits? That's stage 3. The person who said this has successfully climbed up to the third rung of the ladder. They've totally mastered putting why at the front. They just haven't learned the next move yet, which is flipping the verb. So here's the big takeaway. That mistake isn't a failure at all. It's a milestone. It's proof of progress.
And it's not just with questions. We see the exact same thing with learning how to say no. First, it's easy, just stick no in front of everything. No bicycle. Then learners discover this awesome new tool, the word don't, and they use it for everything, even when it's not quite right, like he don't like it. It's only later that they figure out the trickier rules with doesn't and all that. Again, it's a predictable step-by-step journey.
So now that we understand the theory, how can we actually use it? Well, this insight is more than just a cool piece of trivia. It's a practical tool. It allows us to become language detectives, decoding the why behind any given error. Broadly, we can sort errors into two main types. On one hand, you have overgeneralization. This is when a learner correctly learns a rule, like add ed for the past, and gets so excited they apply it everywhere, resulting in words like bide or goad. This is a developmental error. On the other hand, you have L1 transfer, like a Mandarin speaker saying, I very happy, which mirrors their native grammar.
So let's try it out. Put on your detective hat and look at this sentence. The learner communicates their meaning perfectly. But we can see I go instead of I went, and to book instead of to books. This is likely L1 transfer, since some languages don't mark past tense on verbs or plurals on nouns in the same way. But notice they used yesterday correctly. That's a huge win.
And this is where everything comes together. It transforms how we give feedback. Instead of just marking things wrong, we celebrate the communication. Praise what's right first, acknowledge the developmental step they've taken, and then gently offer the next piece of the puzzle. It builds confidence, it lowers the stress of being corrected, and it turns correction into encouragement.
So the next time you hear a language learner, or yourself, make one of these mistakes, stop. Don't see a failure. See the evidence of a mind at work. See a bridge under construction. See a giant leap forward on an incredible journey. What if we saw all our mistakes that way? Not just in language, but in everything. Now that's a powerful thought.